I want you to picture a specific moment. It's a Sunday afternoon, maybe. You're doing something completely normal, folding laundry, driving, just stirring milk into your coffee.
Mhm.
Everything on the surface looks totally fine. Your calendar's full, your job title is the same, relationship status hasn't changed. But then there's this quiet, almost terrifying click in your brain, a realization.
The realization that it's over.
Exactly, that
Yeah.
the relationship or the job or the city you're in, it's just done. The expiration date has passed. But here's the kicker, and this is the feeling we want to get into today.
Yeah.
You don't move.
No.
You don't scream. You don't pack a bag. You just finish your coffee.
It's a profound stillness, isn't it?
Mm.
It's that strange suspended state where your internal reality has completely shifted, like the tectonic plates have moved, but the surface of the earth hasn't cracked yet.
Right. You're basically haunting your own life. And that is exactly what we're digging into today. We're doing a deep dive into this truly beautiful and I think necessary essay by the writer and philosopher Pedro Malha. It's titled, "The Moment You Knew It Would Not Continue."
And we should probably set the stage here that this isn't a how-to guide on breaking up.
Not at all.
No, it's not about how to quit your job. Malha is interested in something much more philosophical. He's exploring what he calls the lag.
The lag.
Yes, that specific, often
Yeah.
excruciating time frame between the moment you know something's over and the moment you actually do something about it.
Yeah.
He argues this isn't just a pause, it's a distinct state of being. It has its own rules, its own physics.
And I think for so many of us, that lag is a place of immense guilt. We feel like frauds. But what I loved about this essay is that Malha completely reframes it. He suggests it's really a battle between, human cognition and human emotion.
It's the question of why the brain reaches the finish line so much faster than the heart.
So let's unpack this. Because usually when we picture the end of something big, we picture a movie scene. We expect fireworks.
Right, a shouting match, finding a text message.
A boss throwing a stapler, something dramatic. We expect a rupture.
We expect an external event to force the internal realization. We want the world to give us permission to leave. But Malha's essay, it starts with a premise that's so much quieter and, frankly, a little spookier. He says the true arrival of this knowing is non-dramatic. It doesn't announce itself.
He uses this analogy of the weather that I just found absolutely fascinating. It just clicked for me.
It's the perfect analogy. Malha writes that this knowing is like the weather or like time.
Yeah.
It just exists. It's not a debate. I mean, think about rain. You might hate that it's raining. You might wish it were sunny.
You could even pretend it isn't raining and go outside without a coat.
Exactly. But the rain is impersonal. It doesn't care about your preference.
That's so different from a decision, isn't it? I feel like we mix those two up. A decision feels like something I make. I weigh the pros and cons, I struggle, I decide. But this feels like something that happens to me.
Precisely. A decision requires agency. You're the actor. This knowing is just a fact that settles into the room. Malha describes it as something that settles into place internally. It's stealthy. You could be at dinner, laughing at a joke, eating the same pasta you've had 100 times, but suddenly the context of the whole room is shifted into the past tense.
And the scary part is that outwardly, nothing changes. The machinery of your life just keeps grinding on. Conversations continue. You're still sharing a Netflix account. You're discussing future plans. But inwardly, the light's gone out.
Malha points out this often happens in the most mundane moments, not during a big fight, but in a pause in conversation. Or, and this is a very modern example he gives, while reading a text message.
Oh, that part hit home. He talks about reading a message that's technically kind, right? It's attentive. It says all the right things.
But it is subtly emptied.
Subtly emptied. Ugh, that's such a devastating phrase. It's like the words are there, the structure is there, but the music behind them has just stopped.
And this is where Malha defines this state with a concept he calls stable absence.
Let's pause on that term, stable absence, because usually when we think of absence, we think of a hole, right? Something's missing and we're frantically trying to fill it or fix it.
Exactly. Usually absence feels volatile.
Right.
Why aren't they calling? Where did the love go? Can I get it back?
Yeah.
That's unstable. But stable absence, it means the emptiness has become a permanent feature of the landscape. It's not a fluctuation. It's the new bedrock.
So you're not wondering if the feeling will come back.
You know it's gone. And the
Yeah.
fact that it's gone is solid. It's stable.
That is heavy. So if the absence is stable, if the knowing is just this undeniable fact, why on earth do we stay? I think this is where I usually beat myself up. I look back and think, I knew 6 months before I left. I'm a coward. I was lying.
And that's the trap. We judge that interval as a moral failure, a failure of courage. But Mala flips this completely. And this is the core philosophical insight of the essay. He introduces this concept that recognition precedes consent.
Recognition precedes consent. Really want to dig into this. What does he mean by consent here? It's
Yeah.
not legal consent, obviously.
Yeah, he means internal, sort of
Yeah.
biological consent.
Mm.
The willingness of your entire self to participate in the ending. He means your intellect, your pattern recognition machine, is incredibly fast. It can calculate this isn't working in a split second. But your consent, your emotional willingness to upend your life, to hurt someone you care about, that's biological. It's slow.
So the lag isn't denial, because that's what my friends would say. Oh, you're just in denial.
He argues pretty forcefully that it is not denial. Denial is refusing to see the truth. Denial is wearing blinders. In this state, you see the truth with perfect clarity. You're staring right at it. You just can't metabolize it yet. He calls it the human lag.
He uses a train analogy here that I thought was really helpful for visualizing this.
Yes. Think of a heavy freight train moving at 80 miles an hour. That's your life. Your habits, your shared history, your affection. If you cut the engine, that's the knowing arriving. The train doesn't stop instantly.
Physics won't allow it.
Exactly. It has massive momentum. It's going to glide for miles before it finally grinds to a halt. And Mala says that's what happens to us. Habit, desire, longing. They all have momentum. They don't just stop because the intellect has pulled the plug.
And we get mad at ourselves for that glide. We think the engine is off. Why am I still moving? Why am I still saying, I love you?
But Mala says during this lag, the knowledge feels observational. You're not driving the train anymore, but you're still on it. You're just watching the scenery go by, knowing you aren't adding any more fuel to the fire. You're detached.
It feels a bit like dissociation, or like living in a bubble.
It's a form of protective detachment. You're living inside what Mala calls an internal bracket.
An internal bracket, like in a sentence.
Right. Imagine the main sentence of your life is happening. We are living together in Chicago. That's the sentence. But you've stepped inside a parenthesis. You understand that everything inside that bracket is temporary. It's a holding pattern. But, and this is crucial, it hasn't released you yet. You're still contained by it.
Okay, but I want to play devil's advocate here, because while this sounds compassionate, isn't it also excruciatingly awkward? How do you navigate the world? How do you talk about next summer's vacation when you know you won't be there?
This is what he calls the uneasy future. And he gets very granular about this experience. He says plans become provisional.
Gestures rather than commitments.
Yes. You might say, oh, we should go to that concert in July. But as the words leave your mouth, they feel weightless. Malha writes, words point forward while the inner orientation is already turned sideways.
That's such a vivid image. You're speaking forward, but your feet are pointed toward the exits, like you're saying lines from a script. But in your mind, you've already walked off stage.
But here's a crucial nuance that Malha introduces, and I think this is what trips people up the most. We tend to assume that if you know it's over, you must stop wanting it.
Right. If I know the food is poisoned, I stop eating. If I know the bridge is out, I stop driving.
In survival, yes. In love. In life, not so much. Malva argues that knowing and wanting are on two completely different tracks in the brain. There's no hierarchy. Just because you have the knowing doesn't mean it instantly overpowers the wanting.
So you can know a relationship is doomed, totally dead in the water, and still really want to hug that person?
You can crave them. You can feel a lift in your chest when their name pops up on your phone. Malha says those reactions aren't invalidated by the knowledge. They just coexist.
Yeah.
Uneasily.
That explains so much, because I think people feel like they're going crazy. They think, well, if I still want to kiss them, maybe I'm wrong about the ending. Maybe the knowing was just a mistake.
But Malha's point is, no, you're not wrong. You're just complex. He writes, knowing arrives before readiness. You can desire something you know is finite. In fact, knowing it's finite might even make you desire it more.
The last meal syndrome. You savor it because you know the plate is about to be taken away.
Precisely. Which brings us to the internal landscape of this phase. You would think living with a secret, because it feels like a secret, would be panic-inducing. High heart rate, sweating. But Malha describes it differently. He says the dominant feeling is a strange calm.
A strange calm. That sounds so counterintuitive. You're sitting on a bomb. Why are you calm?
Well, think about what anxiety actually is. Anxiety is not knowing. It's scanning the data, trying to figure out the pattern. Does he love me? Is this job secure? What did that email mean? You're constantly striving for an answer.
But once the knowing
The
arrives,
striving ends. You have the answer, the envelope is open, the verdict is in. You stop fighting because the question has been resolved. Malala calls it a reduction in urgency. You aren't trying to fix the relationship anymore, you're just watching.
That's profound. It's the calm of surrender. But it sounds like a lonely calm.
Incredibly lonely
Yeah.
because it's invisible. That's probably the hardest part of the lag. You're walking around with this massive, life-altering secret. Your friends look at you and see a couple. Your partner looks at you and sees a future. But you are inhabiting a completely different temporal reality.
You're basically a time traveler.
You are. The person across the table from you is living in a present that leads to a future. You're living in a present that has already become a past. You're watching your own interactions as if they're already memories.
Carrying an ending inside the present? That just breaks my heart a little bit. It's like preemptive grief.
It is grief. You're mourning the loss of the person while they're sitting right in front of you. Malala says joy isn't ruined in this phase, but it is altered. It's tinged with the awareness of its own ending.
Okay, so this brings us to the sticky part, the ethics. Because I can hear listeners screaming at their device right now, this is lying. If you know you have to say it, you're stealing their time.
It's the million-dollar question. Is the lag a form of emotional fraud? Mala tackles this head-on, and his conclusion is controversial but I think very compelling. He argues it's not lying.
How can he possibly justify that?
He separates truth from readiness. He read something like, the affection you feel is not false, the care you offer is not an act. When you're in the lag, you aren't faking the emotion. You genuinely care. You genuinely feel that warmth. You're just unable to align the future with that present feeling yet.
So you're not a villain, you're just buffering.
You're processing.
Yeah.
And remember, sometimes this knowing feels completely unjustified, even to the person feeling it. Malha notes that often nothing has really gone wrong. There's no cheating, no abuse, no big fight.
That makes it so much harder to trust the feeling. If I have evidence, I can act. But I just have a knowing. I feel like I need to build a case before I can execute the break.
Yes. We feel we need to justify the feeling to ourselves, to others. But the knowing, as Malha says, does not respond to argument. You can list 100 pros and cons, but the weather is still the weather. Logic can't override it.
So while we're in this lag, stuck in the bracket, waiting for our hearts to catch up, do we change at all? Or are we just stagnant?
We do change, but it's subtle. The text describes a shift in how you listen. The person in the know starts to shift their weight.
Shift their weight.
Think about standing on a moving bus. You see a sharp turn coming up. You don't jump off. You don't scream at the driver. You just subtly widen your stance. You brace yourself. Malha says we do this emotionally.
So how does that look in a relationship?
Promises start to land with less weight. If your partner says, next Christmas, let's go to the Alps, you smile and say, that sounds nice. But you don't anchor yourself to it. You receive affection, but you don't lean on it. Malha writes, the self has adjusted its balance before moving its feet.
I love that image. You haven't walked out the door, but you're no longer leaning against the wall. You're standing on your own 2 feet, ready for the impact.
Exactly. And surprisingly, this can create a strange tenderness.
Tenderness. I would expect coldness. If I'm braced, I'm rigid.
You'd think so. But because you know the time is finite, you stop taking it for granted. Malha calls it a quiet ache. You become hyper-attentive. You look at your partner and think, this is one of the last times I'll see you sleep, or this is one of the last times I'll drive down this road.
It's the nostalgia of the present. You're already missing it while it's still happening.
Yes. There's less entitlement to continuation. You experience the interaction for what it is, not for what it's building towards. It's actually a very pure form of connection, even if it's incredibly sad.
So eventually this has to end. The lag can't last forever. The train has to stop.
Eventually, alignment happens. The bracket closes. But I love that Mala's essay doesn't focus on the breakup speech. He doesn't give us the climax. He stays in the before. He's interested in that space where certainty exists without authority.
Certainty without authority. That sums it up perfectly. You know the truth. That's the certainty. But you don't have the authority or maybe the strength to enforce it yet.
And Mala is very clear about the judgment here. He asserts that in this space, there is no hero and no villain.
Which is such a relief to hear, because if you're the one holding the secret, you feel like the bad guy. And if you're the one being left, you look back and think, you lied to me for months.
And both of those are valid reactions. But Malha frames the internal experience as continuing to care in the presence of knowledge. It is, and I'm quoting here, acting as though something might last, Not because you believe it will, but because you are not yet ready to live as though it will not.
Wow. Not yet ready to live as though it will not.
That is deeply compassionate. It normalizes the delay. It validates the fact that we're biological, complex beings. Our intellect, our emotions, our habits, they just don't all move at the same speed. And that's okay.
It reminds me of how a star can burn out, but its light takes years to stop reaching Earth. We're just looking at the light for a little while longer.
That's a beautiful way to put it. We're seeing the light of the relationship, even though the star itself has collapsed.
So what's the takeaway here? If someone is listening to this right now and they have that pit in their stomach, if they're in the lag, what do they do?
I think the value is just in naming it. Just knowing that the lag is a legitimate psychological state can be so liberating. It's not a character flaw. It's not proof you're a liar or a coward. It is simply the time it takes for the heart to reorganize itself around a new reality.
You need time to grieve the ending before the ending actually happens.
Correct. You're loosening attachments that are still active. If we can see this state not as deception, but as processing, we can treat ourselves and eventually the other person with a lot more grace.
Patience. That seems to be the key word.
Absolutely. Patience with the disconnect.
Yeah.
Patience with your own biology.
This leaves me with a lot to think about. It's such a specific, quiet corner of the human experience, but Pay for Maha really shines a light on it. It's just comforting to know that quiet knowing isn't a malfunction. It's part of the process.
It's the silence before the change, and often it's the most important part of that change.
Before we go, I want to leave you, our listener, with a final thought to chew on. If you are in that space right now where you're acting like everything is fine, but you know it's not, try this perspective shift.
Ask yourself, what if you stopped judging yourself for the delay? What if that lag isn't you being fake? What if it's just you being human?
What if we treated that time not as a failure to act, but as the necessary preparation required to say goodbye internally before you say it externally?
It changes the narrative from procrastination to preparation. And I think we could all use a little more of that gentleness.
I could not agree more. Well, that is all for this deep dive into the moment you knew it would not continue. We hope this helps you navigate your own quiet knowings. Thanks for listening.
Take care.